Good evening. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We will be talking about IT/OT integration in the pharmaceutical industry and how you can execute these complex projects seamlessly. Let's have a look at the agenda. I'll start off with a welcome and introduction. Then Francesc will tell us about the integration challenges we face in the automation industry today. Giuseppe will then let us know about Zenon's automation integration layer. And then Francesc and me will share our experiences while running this IT/OT integration project at Almirall. At the end of today's webinar, we will have a session for answering some of the questions that you guys come up with. Quick introduction about the presenters. I'm Nishrant Mahesh. I've been working in the automation industry for more than 12 years now. At PharmaX Solutions, I'm the HOD of the IT, OT, and automation department. My main role here is to help build interfaces between automation and MES systems, enabling your digitization goals. I've worked with COPADATA and Zenon throughout my career. I have extensive experience in the pharmaceutical industry, working with PLC, HMI, SCADA, and MES systems. Now, I would like to give you an overview of today's webinar. The main challenge we face while trying to integrate IT and OT systems in the pharmaceutical industry is that both of these systems are completely fragmented. Because of this fragmentation, it's difficult to build efficient workflows and also to innovate. So the solution that we've come up with is to use Zenon as an automation integration layer, and this enables us to integrate all level 2 systems to the MES. With this, we are able to improve data integrity and ensure GMP compliance. This means you can do things like review by exception, where instead of reviewing a batch report that's 100 pages long, you can just look at the exceptions that occurred during that batch, and if you're able to handle them, then you're ready to release your batch. Also, when you build a structured workflow like this, between your manufacturing processes also, there's a standardization. It's also very easy to integrate existing brownfield equipment to your MES system because Zenon offers extensive driver support. And with this, any factory that you have is built over a period of time. You're going to have existing equipment that you also want to integrate to your MES system, and Zenon makes this a breeze. Once you now have all these equipments connected to Zenon, you can start building data contextualization, and then you can have dashboards to get some real-time insights. And in the future, maybe also things like predictive maintenance can be done. The biggest success story here is that with this, Almirall has begun their progress in transforming into an integrated factory. And you can see later in the webinar that they are able to execute projects now in timelines of just a few months. This really showcases the advantage of such a good integration. So I hope with this webinar, we're able to share this knowledge with you. I'll give you an introduction about PharmaX Solutions as a company now. We are headquartered here in Düsseldorf, Germany. We also have offices in Spain, Denmark, and Switzerland. We have totally 50 employees at this point of time, supporting customers all over the world in a variety of languages. We have extensive experience working in the life sciences industry. At PharmaX Solutions, we have expertise across the entire digitalization value chain. We are experts in MES, serialization, IT, OT, and automation, analytics, as well as strategic consulting for GXP compliance. Since we are exclusively focused just on the pharmaceutical industry, we have specialized domain knowledge and are able to support you in reaching your regulatory compliance goals. We also can offer customized solutions tailor-made to reach all your goals. We work with a number of leading pharmaceutical companies and set standards there to reach their smart factory objectives. We also have a lot of experience working with Zenon. We are COPADATA Silver partners and are able to support you there. PharmaX is able to provide end-to-end services for implementation of Zenon because we have deep know-how not only of the Zenon application itself, but also of the pharmaceutical processes and machines. Due to this combination, we can completely design and configure systems that are 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. And as you will see later in the webinar, there is a lot of functionality that can be done within Zenon, using Zenon as an automated integration layer. And we are able to cover all of this. We are also experts in integrating with MES systems, historian, and data analytics tools. With this, I will now hand over to Francesc to tell us about the integration challenges we face in automation as of today.
Hi, everybody. Let's start. Before I go onto the details, let me share a little bit about Almirall. Almirall is a family-owned company founded some 80 years ago. Our headquarters are in Barcelona. I would say that it's a small to mid-size pharmaceutical company. We are a global company, though, with presence in more than 100 countries, and we have some 15 offices around the world, and we own 4 factories, mainly in Barcelona area, but also in Germany, nearby Hamburg. Our passion is, of course, to support and transform our patients' life for the better, so they can realize their hopes and dreams. This is our noble purpose. And in terms of business, we are a company focused mainly and mostly in dermatology. And the fact that we are a family-owned company also helps not to just look into the current numbers of the quarter, but also more in the long term, in the long run, to establish a solid roadmap to support our patients. And last but not least, also Almirall has always been a company driven by innovation. Not only we develop our own products, but innovation has also been always at the heart of Almirall. In fact, we were in Spain, the first factory to have a full automated logistic in our premises nearby Barcelona, but that was a long time ago. So we continue this journey, and this is what I'm going to discuss in the next slides. Okay, integrated factory. Why? Why have an integrated factory? Well, this gentleman here is Mr. Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker used to say that a well-managed factory is boring. And of course, I expect that many of you work in factories and, like me, go to work and get terribly bored, right? Nothing to do. Why? Because, of course, nothing exciting happens. All the processes are in sync. All the data are flowing freely and accurately when I need it. And any issue that may arise, I have anticipated it, and it's now only part of the routine. Now, jokingly. Unfortunately, I think that most of our factories aren't that boring, and that's why we need to do some improvements. And of course, digitalization, IT/OT integration is in that direction to support our processes. So maybe one day we can state the same as Mr. Drucker used to state, that the factories are boring. That day will be a happy day for all of us, I think. So in that regard, since in Almirall we want also to have a very boring factory and very boring processes that works seamlessly, we decided to embrace a program that we named Integrated Factory. And the vision of this program mostly was to have all systems and processes in our production plants fully integrated, harmonized, prepared for the future challenges of digitalization. When I don't, though this part is discussing on challenges, let's put it that way, politically correct. And instead of challenges, let's use, I prefer the term opportunities, because at the end of the day, when we increase our automation, when we increase our digitalization in our processes, at the end of the day is because we want to have opportunities to improve our processes, to be more efficient, to produce with the same or more quality with less resources. So that's at the end the end goal. And of course, within this vision of integrated factory, we had some objectives, mostly having the best practice in the pharmaceutical industry. We also decided to deploy a manufacturing execution system. Of course, integrate the different levels of the plan. Third one, extremely important, it's a key success factor, always focus on improvements for the people. Otherwise, digitalization in itself doesn't make any sense. And as I said, we are not a big corporation, but still we have different plans. So of course we need to look into the synergies among the different plans. Okay, sorry. Before starting the journey, we did an exercise. We decided to assess ourselves on the status quo, where we are, because you need to be very honest with yourself. There are different models to assess your maturity in terms of digitalization in your plans. We took the Bioforum model, and we ended up in a situation that though we have a lot of digital systems, but they are old, therefore our current situation is that we are, I would say, in a status of level 2. That means digitalization, automation, but still a lot of silos. Therefore, the main goal of our program was to move on from the digital silos into the integrated factory. At this point in time, just not me speaking and you watching, we have several polls that we will run. So the first poll that I would like you to answer is to look at the people that work in a plant. Please look at your plant, and if you can tell us at which level, considering these 5 levels of Bioforum, at which level do you consider your current plants are in terms of digital plant maturity? As I said, our journey is moving from level 2 to level 3, because once you are at level 3 integrated factory, then you can move forward and get the benefits of having all your processes and systems fully integrated in your plants. So this is it, Dreamland. So this is the famous pyramid based on ISO 95 with the full vertical and horizontal integration. That is our endpoint in terms of integrated factory. This is, I call it the Drucker 4.0, Industry 4.0, or Industry 5.0. Still, we get with the smart factory integrated, and finally we get a boring factory. And in this boring factory, of course, everything is working in sync. The manufacturing execution system manages the operations. The laboratory execution system manages the QC operations. All the production data and information, either is for an equipment, for a process, to gather material, is sent promptly when it's needed. Of course, the ERP and the planning systems plans and tracks all the movements according to the demand. And of course, this model works in real time, and we are finally supporting efficiently all our resources. But unfortunately, this transformation needs also to look at our operation model, how we do operate our plants. And when you look at how do you operate your plants, then, okay, you can kind of classify your processes in different parts, like the handover, the synchronization, and the report. But doesn't matter which strategy you set, which systems you will apply, which technologies you select. In our case, and in many, many cases, there are question marks. And the question mark is basically we have an existing process. We have old systems. We have already automation, islands of automation. And here is when it comes the challenge to decide, okay, how do I do this integration? How do I match my strategy, my manufacturing execution systems, my management systems with the existing automation and old platforms that, as we've discussed, most of them are isolated. And for that, it is my pleasure to hand over to Giuseppe, who will maybe start unveiling a little bit how we can solve this puzzle, how we can answer this question. So Giuseppe, my pleasure if you can continue this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesc. Thank you for this nice introduction and introducing us the challenges of the digitalization in life science manufacturing. So let me now start introducing the concept of automation integration layer before going then deeper on the specific use cases of Almirall. I want to start first with introducing COPADATA as a company very quickly, a couple of slides. Just to start to say that COPADATA has been founded in 1997 by a young engineer in that time, like a classical garage company, where Thomas Punzenberger and a few friends of him decided to start developing a software to simplify the life of the automation engineers. Today, COPADATA is a company that is composed by more than 450 employees, distributed worldwide in more than 50 countries, and it's still an independent company, so a family-owned business, and the current turnover is around 100 million euro. And we are serving important customers in different industries: energy infrastructure, pharmaceutical, food and beverage, automotive, and so on. The business model of COPADATA. So what we do software. We develop a software platform that is called Zenon. We distribute the software globally, and we support our customer. We train our customer. We have a network of partners that we call it COPADATA Partner Community, typically machine builders and system integrators, and they are using and configuring the platform in order to provide solutions to end customers, pharmaceutical company or other customers in different industries. And this is exactly the use case of today, where we see together COPADATA providing the platform, PharmaX providing the configuration and the final application, and Almirall is the end customer that apply finally the application in its process. Good. Let me now offer you a quick overview about the Zenon software platform, where Zenon can be used in a classical pharmaceutical manufacturing. As you can see here, Zenon is historically known as the SCADA system running at the machine level. We call it Pharma HMI. It's quite common to see Zenon on a machine level, because it's in one side providing ergonomics for the users, but on the other side it provides compliance with data integrity. So it provides out-of-the-box feature in the direction of supporting data integrity. Of course, Zenon can be then used as a line execution system, so controlling a set of line, different machines connected together. We see here an example of aseptic filling or other continuous manufacturing. And if we move now in the other area, classical process automation area, drug substance, compounding, formulation, and so on, we see Zenon acting as, we call it open and modular process automation solution. So we provide the solution in the area of process control, using an hardware agnostic approach. So we have an ISA 88 batch control system providing process control independently from the hardware you're going to select. And we have a solution in the area of modular automation according to a standard that is called MTP, module type package. But as you can see here, Zenon can be also used for creating building management system solutions, environmental monitoring systems, and so on. And here on top, you see the so-called automation integration layer. And this is exactly the subject of the topic of today. So as you can imagine, as you can see on the picture, the automation integration layer is offering you connectivity with the field, with the machines and the equipment and systems, collecting data, storing data centrally in a data storage, aggregating, contextualizing the data, presenting the data to the operators, and finally sharing the data to other IT applications on top. One classical configuration, and this is one of the important topics of today, is the integration between the automation integration layer and an MES system. In this case, for providing the so-called electronic batch record. But if we consider what type of data we should consider when we need to integrate a shop floor to an electronic batch record. In this slide, I have just an example to provide you some idea. For example, I need the time series data. So I need to collect regularly with a specific time period, a temperature or a pressure, because they are critical process parameters that I need to monitor. Or maybe I need to provide aggregated data in this case, like a minimum, maximum, average, standard deviation of a specific critical parameter at the end of a unit operation. So not a continuous monitoring, but just a set of data, important data, at the end of a specific unit operation. Besides that, I need to collect alarms. Why alarm? Because the alarm, it can be a GMP critical, a GMP exception, for example, or audit trail, because the operator is changing a critical process parameter. Those are information that need to be provided to the electronic batch record. They are part of the electronic batch record. But then we need also to synchronize the execution of the electronic batch record with my machines, with my process. For example, I need to send the batch information, the batch ID, the recipe name I need to activate, or other critical parameters to my machine when I'm going to open a batch, for example. Or maybe during the operation, I need to perform an in-process control. Or maybe at the end of the batch, I need to collect some counters, some information. As you can imagine, here we are talking about bidirectional communication, and we are talking about to contextualize transactional communication. So as you can imagine, a classical IoT platform that is used to simply read data is not probably the right platform. We are doing something more here. And if we consider the classical landscape we have in pharmaceutical, what we have, how we can collect those data from our equipment. So let's imagine here we have 4 machines. Let's imagine from different machine builders. And each machine builder decide to use a specific PLC type, or maybe a specific SCADA system, or local HMI, and so on. And you need on top, as you can see here, information like an audit trail, an alarm history, recipes, or other information in this direction. And if you want to collect those data, and if you try to ask to the machine builder to provide you the data, for sure they provide this to you. But each machine builder provides you the data in a different format. Maybe they use OPC UA for the real-time communication, but if you ask for the alarm, someone provides you a SQL database, someone provides you a CSV file, someone provides you an XML file, and so on. So you have really an heterogeneous landscape. And this is something that is challenging for the automation engineer that need to integrate the data, and for QA people that need then to validate the system, because we are talking about critical information for the data integrity point of view. And this is exactly where the automation integration layer is offering you some help in this case. So it is exactly a middleware, as you can see in this picture, in between OT and IT. It provides to you exactly, try to bridge the gap between the two systems. Provide, of course, compliance with data integrity, because it has been developed for this. and provide bi-directional communication, not only reading data, but also sending data to the equipment if it is requested. As I told you before, setting a batch ID or a recipe information for sending a recipe, for example. And on the other side, provide the data to the IT systems. It includes data storage, reporting, dashboarding, and so on. And then for helping the engineering teams, from the engineering point of view, here's the concept of modular engineering. So we can create a module, we can validate the module and then reuse it as if I have similar equipment, for example. And then it is also low code, no code in terms of software capabilities. So a configurable platform according to GAMP5. This is exactly to simplify the engineering and validation effort. One of the capability we will see today connected to the use cases, I mean, the Zenon automation integration layer and the MES we are going to see today is this native MSI interface we have in Zenon, connecting PASIX. It provides exactly a plug-and-produce approach for the integration with PASIX, providing batch synchronization, in-process control, exception handling, material reconciliations, and so on. And it provides really an easy way for integrating. You can test the interface offline without having the real system connected, so you can simplify the work for the engineering and also for the validation. And now is the time to hand over to Francesca to see those systems I introduce you in action in real use cases. Francesca, stage is now back to you.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for your introduction to Zenon and to the automation integration layer. So here we go again. Well, I go back to my pyramid. Sorry, guys. Remember, I left it here, and we have some question marks, right? So we have to build and to bridge the gaps among our IT systems, for instance, our manufacturing execution system and our automation. Okay, so what do we do? How do we start? Okay, first, as I said, it's not just about, as Giuseppe has shown, it's not just about going wild and connecting machine and asking each vendor or adapting to each vendor solution and kind of end up with what I call an spaghetti model with a lot of different connectors and different strategies to connect your MES systems. So what we did is, okay, we are doing our integrated factory program. We are applying our manufacturing execution systems. We are, at the end of the day, redefining our operational model. So first thing is, let's have a look at the operational model. And in the operational model, if we take, for example, a process order, I'm going to manufacture or I'm going to package a product, a batch. Typically, we have 3 different parts during my process. I have my handover activities. These are all the preparation activities that we need to do before starting the production, starting the batch. Here in this handover, we have activities that are run by different systems. Of course, there are activities related with planning, starting with our demand planning, looking into our capacities, into priorities, and then downloading the plan into a scheduler so that the scheduler can look into the optimal way to launch the orders into our production lines. Once I launch the order is received by the subsequent systems. In our case, we have our MES system that in our case is Verum. I think that there's a poll ongoing. If you can please respond how many of you have PASIX in your facilities, or maybe you have already another MES technology, or maybe you just don't have still a MES system in place. Having said that, at this stage, the mesh system and the other related system. Of course, in the laboratory, we have the LIMS-less system. And in between, we have our intralogistics system, our warehouse management system that takes care of all the materials movements and goods movements to get the raw materials or the products from the warehouse into the lines and back to the warehouse when required. And at this point in time, there's the final handover where the mesh system starts the actual production in the line. And in the line, we have people, we have procedures, we have the materials, but of course, we have automation. As Giuseppe has discussed, we have machines from different vendors. Therefore, we need to look into the handover, and we look into the handover and check what do we will need in the handover. Then, once the handover is done, it comes the synchronization phase. The synchronization phase is everything that happens during the production. And during the production, of course, there are important data to be captured, to be recorded. In our case, the CPPs, the CQAs, critical quality attributes and critical process parameters, plus some data values. But of course, also we have all our IPCs, all our in-process controls that we need to record. Also, we can have alarms, and alarms can be categorized into critical or non-critical alarms. We can also have events, and we can sometimes require even a further synchronization among the activities that the manufacturing execution system manage, because the manufacturing execution system manage not only automated but also manual activities, and we need to establish some sort of synchronization among all the processes that are automatically managed by machines or automation system and all the manual activities that the manufacturing execution system is doing, alongside the interaction with the material management that also the manufacturing execution system is doing. So all of this is happening during the synchronization phase, and also requires some sort of integration among our manufacturing execution system and our machines and our automation platforms. And finally, typically there's a third part, which is when you finish the batch, and there we have some reporting activities. When we finish the batch, there are some values that needs to be reported, reports that needs to be attached to the EDR, and also performance times that needs also to be managed and sent to the controlling systems. So, and of course, inform on the outcome of the batch. So as you can see, you transform your operational model. Now you have a lot of systems, but still we need to fulfill the gap. And in order to fulfill the gap, what we decided is, okay, let's, as I said, look into the different transactions that we have at each stage. So in the handover, we discovered, or we found out, these 4 transactions. So we need to be able to do a recipe select, so we can select the recipe from a certain machine, or maybe the machine doesn't have a recipe management system. Therefore, what we need to do before we start is directly load all the parameters and all the setup that the machine will need. It's also extremely important that at that point in time, once we start the production, we set the batch context. So we have a placeholder where we know which material we are producing, which batch we are running, which production order we are running, on which equipment, because this is information that then will help us enrich all the captured data with context. And finally, when you're ready, you can launch your order. This is the 4th transaction that can happen in the handover that you can automate among your mesh system and your productive system, which is launching the order to the machine or machines. In the synchronization, as I already discussed, we have the following transactions. So here, the transactions that we found is we may need some, as I said, batch synchronization. That means synchronization among manual activities and automated activities that are driven by the machines or the automation systems. In some cases, you could even need a full ISA SATH batch control system. So you have your mesh system, but if you have, depending on the plan, maybe you have a liquids plan, which is our case, to run the liquids plan, it's most of the time a recommendation to have a batch management system to run all the automated phases that you need to drive your process in your liquids plan. That's the case. So you might need also a batch system under the mesh system, and of course, with the transaction 5, do synchronization among them. Also, sometimes it's good to have the platform not only for as a pure middleware, as Giuseppe has mentioned. You need to complement your mesh system with some HMI capabilities. Maybe there are little movements that you want to do. Maybe there is information you want to provide on the screen of the operator, so he or she doesn't need to go to the HMI of the machine, and she or he can make some decisions with some HMI capabilities. Of course, you need to be able at this point in time, as I discussed, to gather process value, no matter if the process value are CPPs, CQAs, data values, or IPCs. But it's extremely important to have this capability set at this stage while you are producing. And as I already discussed, the capability to define and discriminate among non-critical alarms, critical alarms, or exceptional events, so that if a critical alarm appears, this can be automatically submitted to the mesh system, and the mesh system can record it as an exception, because at the end of the day, in the pharma industry, when you set a mesh system and an EBR, the final goal is to be able to review by exception. But if I don't have these critical alarms automatically pushed into the mesh system, at the end of the day, I will do a partial review by exception, because I will always need to go into some sort of alarm report or machine report to look for critical alarms if they have occurred or not. So this is also in helping us to speed up all the review processes, to have the critical alarms also integrated, as well as the exceptional events. And mesh typically manage equipment, and equipment have automation. So yeah, you need some sort of capabilities to do this equipment management among the automation system and the mesh system. And last but not least, in the report part, when you are done with your batch, a few more transactions that we might consider, which is basically submit the batch final state. So if the batch has been typically and hopefully gone successfully or not, then performance and report. So this is what we got. So now what we do? How do we move forward? We have the model. Now we have the transactions. What's next? Okay. To decide on the automation, how do I solve this puzzle? I did the Venn diagram. And in the Venn diagram, I put my constants. And my constants are these 14 transactions or building blocks, as I've discussed. Our mesh platform, in our case, is PharmaX. PharmaX has a protocol named MSI to do shop floor integration. And of course, my existing automation, my brownfield plants. So this is a simple way to start solving the puzzle. So first thing that I need to do to solve the puzzle. Okay, of course, I will need to design my mesh system to support these 14 building blocks, these transactions. That's easy peasy. Next thing, of course, I need to do something that automation, my brownfield, and the mesh system, they talk to each other. Whatever. So I need to extend somehow my manufacturing automation, in my case, to implement MSI protocol, which is the protocol used by PharmaX. And finally, of course, I need to put something on top of my automation to adapt my automation to my building blocks, to these 14 transactions that I have already defined. Okay. So what's next? Okay, let's continue this exercise. Now I have more or less the 3 constants and what I need to do. So let's continue. What else? Okay. If we look into the mesh part, of course, I will need to do some configuration on the mesh, define modules, define libraries to support. And sometimes it's not a bad idea to have some expert partner to support in that regard, to help you build these blocks in the mesh systems. And also it's a good idea when you implement mesh, when you implement these integrated solutions, to think on standards, because standards like ISO 88 or ISO 95 model help us define the responsibilities. Here we are all the time dealing with IT, OT, and typically IT, OT are different groups: automation department, OT, information technologies, IT. So it's good to rely on models that even help us define responsibility, who does what. For the MSI, of course, I will need to have something that on the one hand talks the machine protocols, and on the other hand talks MSI. So I need a middleware. Here, of course, I need a middleware that translates MSI into the protocols that the different systems, machines, old and new, are able to provide to integrate. Again, here having a good team, and I am proud to say that at Almirall we have an excellent automation team that supports these projects, but also we have excellent partners that support these excellent automation teams. It's extremely important to have a committed team to do this automation integration, because normally it's tricky. And in this case, it's not doing the spaghetti. It's a little bit even trickier because we want to set the model. Because when you have a model and you deploy the model from the point of view of the pharmacist, he or she will always work the same way. Doesn't matter if the machine has an Omron PLC, a Siemens PLC, if it's from vendor machine A or vendor machine B. If the transaction is download the recipe to the machine, the pharmacist will always look at this use case the same way. And last but not least, here to adapt the brownfield, of course we need, here is when we definitely need something, and here is when the concept of automation integration layer comes into play to support highly flexible, modular, and of course needs to be engineer friendly, scalable, quick, and of course we want to have local and global support. But also, we want references, and of course we want to be pharma ready, and if possible with MTP and with a solid roadmap, and we want to be that it's state of the art, and I don't want to spend a huge amount of money, so I want to be cost effective, and I want no code, low code, I want to reduce the customization, I need expert partners, and of course with an excellent training and support capabilities. And of course, this is going to be my enabler for Industry 4.0, 5.0. So what do I do? How do I solve the puzzle? Well, I took everything, all that you see here, I mix it, and I launch it into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT will give me the answer. And ChatGPT, what answer gave me? A unicorn. No. Now, jokes apart, as a summary, we need a solid platform like COPADATA AIL. We need solid partners like PharmaX, and we need an excellent team like our automation team at Almirall. So this is how we solve the puzzle. And just to give you a few examples, project number 1, liquid formulation. We built a batch system on our liquid formulation plan. The implementation took around 3 months. Integrated here on top, you can see the use cases, the building blocks that we used, and the commissioning took 1 month. So we speed up a lot this development. Second example, for instance, we have our bin lifter dispenser. In this case, is to manage and lift bins, and here is when we use the HMI capabilities provided by Zenon. And a third, this took us around about 2 months to build. And the third project was a non-expected project where, due to data integrity observation, we need to do a machine integration to the download variable data immediately. So we discussed with the machine vendor, and here we were able to solve this topic in 1 week, roughly. So these are 3 examples on how we are kind of taking advantage on the automation integration layer and our partnerships. And having said that, I think that maybe Nisran, you can discuss a little bit how PharmaX support us in these projects.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you, Frances, for that insight into the project. Now, I would like to speak a bit about how PharmaX helps in projects like this. Since we are experts at both Zenon and the MES system, we are the first level of support for a customer like Almirall. And we help set up the communication adapter on both Zenon and the MES side. We also help with selecting the data that needs to be exchanged between the MES to the level 2 system. So what data do you want to transfer between the systems? Also in the other direction, what data needs to be transferred? When you're transferring this data, what message types need to be used? And of course, when you build this into your process workflow, it also means a change in the MBR design, how to handle this change in the MBR design, where to include your interface basic functions. All of this, PharmaX is there to support with. Also, if there is an interface that's being added on the level 2 system, you have to validate this interface. How do you go about this? What is the validation procedure for this? This is the role that PharmaX plays in projects like this.
So basically, yeah, as I said, as Ski was discussing, there are several gaps that needs to be handled. It's not only, as you can see in this slide, it's not only about technology. I want to focus on one important one, the cultural gap. It's extremely important to have a change management program in place. And here again, there are a lot of partners, and we have our trusted partners, and we have the vendor that also with the training capabilities support us to bridge this gap. Because you can put all the technology in the world that you want, but if your people doesn't embrace it, then you are going to fail. And at Almirall, alongside with Zenon support and our partner support, we put a lot of effort that we have our people well trained and ready for this change, because believe me, it's a big change. And taking this change, some lessons learned to end up this presentation. First one, go step by step. As I said, it has a huge impact in the organization and a huge impact on the people. So start small, maybe you can do a pilot and then move on. Have a clear vision, define the plan, and follow the plan. Stick to the plan. Also, as we did, address your legacy systems and decide when it's worth retrofitting or replacing this system. And if you need to do so, always do it in advance. And again, assess the impact on the people. They have been working with this old system for many, many years. You need to assess how they are going to be impacted. Maybe you can give some insights as well on other lessons.
Another lesson, yes, for sure. At the first glance, it can be cheaper and simpler, probably replacing everything in one go. So simply removing the old stuff and starting with the new one. But at the end of the day, the main lesson, the main suggestion could be make more sense to split the projects in areas and functions, and transfer the process step by step in waves, let me say. In software development, we say agile approach, step by step. And if you are used to going the mountain, you know very well where you want to go, your final destination. But you start working, you define intermediate stops, you enjoy the view, and then you go on with the next stop, intermediate stop. and so on. And you can reach faster and easier. And at the end of the day, is more cheaper than doing this big bang as is written here. The second lesson is regarding the functions and boundary in the functions. So there are in Francesc projects there are different teams working together. So the IT, the OT, QA, and of course partners as PharmaX and so on. Who is responsible for what? Where the specific functions should be located? For example, I don't know, recipe management or alarm, acknowledge of the alarm, historian, and so on. So in this case, a good idea, a good suggestion, as Francesc mentioned in the previous slide, is referring to a standard. This could be an approach. So ISO 95 it can be a good idea. Of course, there are also other standards to consider, but for avoiding discussion, I think referring to a standard could be a good idea, a good approach. Yeah.
Okay. Couple more isolation. Make sure that you have a good steering team, so you don't have overlap, because sometimes you have several people working in the same. So it's important to detect this. And another one, the hidden plan. When you look into your processes, there's a good hint is to use lean tools, because lean tools unveil a lot of the hidden non-value added activities that when you do integration solves. So it's important also to do this and engage the people that really know the process. So this is also two lessons learned that we have had during the journey. And of course, final thought, this is all about integration, IT and OT. Will be a day that OT and OT will completely work together seamlessly? What do you think? Of course, when health is over. Okay, sorry for the joke. We don't have a lot of time left. So now it's time for Q&A. Sorry, because we are a little bit late. So if you agree, I can take some of the questions that I see in the chat. For instance, I see a question coming from Luis Tuos. I think that this one is for me, and he's asking if did you stop your manufacturing operation to install MES, TASIX in this case? If so, for how many time? If no, how did you handle? Luis, at least our experience, yes, you need to plan for some downtime when you install your MES system. In our case, what we did is, remember the lessons learned, take a phased approach. So if I'm going to deploy the MES, I start deploying the MES in a certain area. Therefore, when I install the MES and I go live, I only impact that area, but not the rest of the areas that are running. So yes, it takes some downtime. Of course, we do a lot of validation activities and testing activities upfront to minimize the downtime it takes. But yeah, it takes some downtime. And the smart thing, as Giuseppe has mentioned, is don't go for the big bang, because then the downtime is going to be very high. Go piece by piece, small, and then you have downtimes, but micro downtimes that you can manage, and the impact on your production is less. Let me look for other questions.
Yeah, Yannick Richter has an interesting question, in my opinion. And okay. He said, I really like the idea of an automation integration layer, but how to convince customers to invest? It is a backbone, not a feature. We built this layer so we can build other things faster. It's hard to sell. Of course, it is a use case accelerator, but it does not deliver value directly. Any recommendation? Let me add the one recommendation, in my opinion, maybe, and then Francesc for sure can approve or not. But let's imagine what means review by exception, enabling review by exception in operations. How long time do you save in batch release if you have a review by exception? I think this is an important value. You can leverage thanks to this level of digitalization. What do you see, Francesc, this point? You are muted, Francesc. I don't know what happens.
Okay.
Oh.
Maybe I can share some insight on this question.
Yeah.
It's also one way to sell this would be that you could sell it as it's a cheaper option than upgrading all your level 2 systems. So for example, if you want to build an integration to your MES and the existing systems don't have an interface to this MES system, like the case that was there in Almirall, introducing this automation integration layer gives you the flexibility to use the Zenon drivers to connect to all of the level 2 systems. But now you have all of these level 2 systems then integrated to the MES. And when you look at it this way, it's much easier to install this system, also much cheaper to install the system than to do a retrofit on all your level 2 systems. And this way is a better sell. Also, you can leverage Zenon's licensing module, only license the parts that you need as you go. So your initial cost impact is not that high. Okay, I think
Francesco is muted.
Yeah. But we are also out of time, so I thank you all for joining this webinar. I hope you have a good takeaway with the knowledge that we've shared. We will make a recording of the webinar available, and if you have any further questions, please feel free to get in touch with us, and we would be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.